and welcome back to the Thick Boys Podcast, the thickest podcast in the world. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Phillips.
And I'm Carlos.
And he is Carlos. Wow, what was that noise?
This is my air duster.
Nice!
Blew it right into my mic.
Fucking sick. Hey, Carlos, did you know our podcast, it's its sweet 16 today, because this is the 16th episode.
Oh, boy, I hope Andy buys me a car.
Oh, I cannot do that with my current financial situation.
Oh.
I apologize. Although, I did get my first Patreon direct deposit yesterday, and I am wild and
Rich boy.
Rich boy. Not really, but I do appreciate any and all contributions.
Dude, I wish I had a Patreon. I'm going to start a Patreon.
And then I'll just give you back what you gave to me, and there'll be an endless cycle. It's like birthdays with relatives.
I'm going to start a Patreon, but I'm not going to actually put forth the amount of effort that you put forth into creating content and also putting stuff on your Patreon. I'm just going to have it up, and then people are going to donate, and they're like, yo, what do we get out of this? And I'm going to be like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, I'm going to be combative when people ask about it.
That's like way more of a common thing than you probably think. I've been using Reddit a lot more to like self-publicize. And, you know, you critique other people's works and they do the same for you. And, you know, it's a good community feeling. And this one guy posted a really random, like, video. And it was just, like, the words, like, Google Analytics being, like, copy and selected multiple times and just looped with, like, not even, like, a lo-fi beat. Or it was just, like, the most generic stock music. And it was all just to send people to their... I think it's Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi. It's like, hey, contribute $3 to my Ko-Fi account so I can afford a cup of coffee. It's similar to Patreon. I didn't know about it, but I checked it out, and that channel I found was just, it was weird. It was whacked.
See,
I'll probably.
That's what I got to start. I'm just gonna be like, money, please.
Money, please.
Anywhoosies, folks, today we were getting back into the flow of a little bit of structure for the show as much as we can during this time.
Dude, can I say something real quick? Hold on.
Yeah, what you got?
Well, you don't know this because you can't see my screen, but you'll probably see it when you're editing. But I'm wearing glasses for the first time in a bit. If I were to ask you to guess how long it's been since I took off my contacts, give me a rough estimate.
Since you took them out or put them in?
Took them out.
Oh. So you wore them for I can't do that for more than a day.
Slept in them and
Oh.
I have a terrible habit of this. I have an awful habit of this. If you had to guess.
A week?
Ooh.
I'm shooting high here.
That's shooting real low.
What?
That's shooting
Am
really
I right?
low. No, that's shooting really low. Like,
no.
Super low.
Are you saying it's like fucking months or something? What's going on?
Probably. I actually don't know for sure. I'm pretty sure it was this year though.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was
That's
after.
messed up, dog.
I'm pretty sure it was after January 1st. So, I mean,
dog,
that.
if you've been wearing the same pair of contacts since I still lived with you, that's a little messed up. It's been a long time.
I think I have no idea, but I took them off this morning, and my eyes immediately were like, well, I was gonna make a reference to like SpongeBob, but you don't watch SpongeBob.
You're allowed to make references. We have guests that have watched that show.
Well.
You don't have to reduce the content on my part.
Or like that time when SpongeBob was like, water.
Water would be nice.
My eyes feel great right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, of course they would. You're a madman.
So it's gonna be It's gonna be a bit before I put my contacts on.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just get LASIK. See, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to start GoFundMe for everyone to pay for my LASIK.
I haven't really thought about LASIK. I feel like glasses like improve my face. Not just like in terms of that I could see better with them, but like as in like the structure and the glass. Of course, I'm wearing my contacts now, so hey. So guys, we got some updates for you. As you know, we're back. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And we like chit chatting with each other, but we even like chit chatting with you. That's right, you the viewer. Hello. How you doing?
How you doing?
How you doing? Yeah, so we're gonna try and do 2 episodes a month. We'll kind of spitball it for like the 1st and the 15th to make sure that they're evenly spread out and stuff. But obviously we have our own lives going on. Carlos, like he mentioned in the last episode, is buying a house. I am out here in California trying to figure out employment options. And yeah, so we've got stuff going on, but we're trying to have a fun time and make sure we get the content delivered to you, baby. Ha ha. I don't know what this character devolved into, so I'm sorry. Yeah, so 2 episodes a month. Keep your eyes and your ears peeled like an orange. This metaphor has gone away from me. All right. Time for our first segment of the day, Carlos.
What is it?
What is it? Oh.
Is it?
I was trying to boing flip it.
Boing flip.
Oh, Dave. Yes. Dave. Dave season 1 on FX. Let's talk about it. What we like, what we dislike.
Yeah,
is that a dog?
We talked about it a little bit last week, how we were both enjoying it. But I mean, since we recorded that last episode, it had
a really stellar season finale.
Yeah, really great, like last 2 episodes, honestly. Well, I mean, every episode I thought was great, but the last 2 really kind of wrapped up the season really nicely, and I thought was a really strong end to a really great first season. So that's why we thought we'd talk about it again. But yeah, I mean,
for sure,
we touched on it last time where I talked about, and we both kind of agreed. I really enjoy every single character, and I think that that's a great testament to the writing on the show. Is that I really just enjoyed throughout the entire show how I didn't feel like whenever Dave wasn't on, like, in a scene, that it was lacking. Like I really enjoyed every single episode, and nothing really felt like it was like, oh, you can skip this episode, it wasn't that great, like, or you know what I mean? Like if I were to recommend it to people, like, it wouldn't be like, you know how like sometimes people when they recommend Parks and Rec, they're like, you can skip the entire first season. Like,
yeah,
it's not at all like that.
It's like, so it's not a perfect show then if I'm able to just skip
or when people are
here
like,
and there.
You could just stop when Michael leaves the office. Like, there's those kind of people too. Like, so far in the first season, and it's only been 10 episodes. So it's not like it's a lot.
But I think that's the perfect length for this show, though.
Yeah,
I think it works really well.
Yeah, like I wouldn't want it to be this whole like 25 episode season where you're inevitably gonna have like filler episodes like that. Like, I think when you cut it down to 10 episodes, it kind of gives the show a chance to just have really strong episodes every single week.
Yeah. My my roommate and I have been watching through Community because he hasn't seen it all the way through. You know Quinn, but for the audience and everything.
Quinn.
So Quinn. So we've been watching through Community a bit, and I really love all of season 2. To me, is like really great television, and then season 3 it starts to go down just a bit, but that's usually when I stop and everything. But we just finished season 1, and there was like 2 really good episodes that wrap up the season. But right before those 2 episodes, it's probably my least favorite episode of Community ever. It's one where like some high schooler kids are at the school, and then they just keep like mocking Jeff and Britta back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's just like not an entertaining or funny storyline. And like nothing really like happens in that episode to advance anything.
Which one's the paintball one? Because that was like...
That one happened right after that episode, actually.
Oh, okay. There you go. That's the end of season 1.
So it's like you've got literally back-to-back the worst and arguably the best episode. Anyway, and it's because they, were following NBC studio guidelines of filling like a 24, 25 episode block. And meanwhile, shows like Dave, Atlanta, several others that are on like cable channels are able to do 10 episodes, have the entire season be
What We Do in the
quality.
Shadows? Huh? How about that one?
What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah.
Solid
I
show.
still need to watch more of that. New season came out, right?
Yeah, season 2.
Yeah, I gotta get that binge on, baby.
FX has some really great shows, man. Like I gotta give it to FX, and like they have some really great shows.
Oh yeah.
Which it's nice like that they have a partnership with Hulu in case like you don't have cable.
Yeah.
If you get Hulu, you can watch like all FX shows because there's like FX on Hulu. But they have like a lot of great shows on there. That they have a show with Martin Freeman. Called
Breeders, right?
Yeah, that show's pretty solid. I'm laughing in my head because Quinn and I had a conversation the other day where I kept calling Martin Freeman Martin Short.
Yeah.
And it was upsetting him so much. Where I was like, did you like Martin Short in The Office and The Hobbit? And he was so upset.
I just imagine him like steaming. He's just like, this is not right. This is incorrect information. Hopping back to Dave real quick. I've got the episode list in front of me. All of them,
you're so prepared.
at least on,
Hold on.
On IMDb,
now I gotta pick it up too.
I'm just filling the blank spots, buddy. All the episodes have at least a 7.3 and above on on their ratings. Granted, it's IMDb like users. It's it's not like even Rotten Tomatoes isn't reliable. So I mean, like, take it what you will. But it is good. It is good to see that the episodes that I really liked are definitely ranked up higher. However, you and I talked about the episode where Els, who is Dave's producer, he kind of has his own episode. That one got rated the lowest.
Really?
And granted, that one's the one with 7.3, and I'm like, I still really like that one a lot.
Yeah,
Plus,
I mean, I would rate that as like, I mean, obviously after episode 5, Hype Man with Gata, episode 9 and 10, the last two, I would rate the Els one as one of my favorites. Like I just really enjoyed like that sort of like, like it was just kind of like we stepped back from what was going on with Dave, and all of a sudden we're getting a peek into like Els' struggle at, trying to gain his confidence and becoming a better producer, and also like his like romance and trying to maneuver like being confident but not being like an asshole, but also like trying to be like just smooth with like women, but I really enjoyed it, and like I could honestly say it was like after the 3 strongest episodes in the season for me, 5, 9, and 10, like that episode with Els was right after that, like as one of my favorites.
I pretty much agree with you there. Plus, like Trippy Red and like his like
his is it his niece or a nephew? I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, but it has the kid just walking around, and then it's like the cutest actor I've seen in a long time, where they're just like they just kind of speak kind of muted but confidently in who they are, and I'm just like, that's adorable. I need more of this character. Yeah,
that episode's really solid. It's like funny, it's endearing, and it's like I'm actually surprised to hear that it was like rated low.
Yeah,
because like I said, it was one of my favorites.
Well, and I think the show definitely has solidified as more than what people made it out to be, because of the finale in particular. But an ongoing thing, whenever I would see it mentioned on like Twitter or just kind of anywhere on social media or anything, people would be easy to critique. They'd be like, because a lot of people like don't like Lil Dicky as a performer or as an artist or whatever. I understand, subjectivity, but a lot of people immediately kind of wrote this show off and kind of being at least I don't know if the term is like trigger happy, but very quick to kind of say no to this show without even seeing what they're talking about, because I think the finale does the best job of addressing the biggest critique of Lil Dicky as a performer. Granted, coming from another white guy, so I'm just simply kind of regurgitating what Dave said in his finale, but it's kind of a lot of Dave, the artist, was getting kind of targeted and was like, hey, you're a culture vulture for, rapping in this manner or not using your platform in a bigger way and everything. And spoiler alert for the finale, mostly just the final scene, but there's a scene that takes place on the radio show, The Breakfast Club. And Dave is, it's Charlemagne, right? That's
Charlemagne the God.
Yeah. So Charlemagne starts to critique him and says, hey, you're just carrying around. Yeah, I think the quote, again, don't quote me on this, but I think they said that's your token black guy that you have walking around with you. And he's like, Dave's, very kind of forward and just taken aback. Granted, Dave is playing himself as in, hey, I'm a dumb, stupid idiot. I'll make mistakes. If this was what you're saying it is, I'm sorry it didn't come from that place. But it's actually having an adult conversation about why he is making waves the way he is, because he's trying to be as genuine. And so it's actually Gata who is being referenced, and then he chimes in and says, no, I'm actually a supporter. I believe in this guy. We don't need to be making this about anyone else other than his and my friendship. And they show that they have each other's backs. And so it's not one of these things where Dave is using the people around him. If anything, they're all mutually agreeing as a group to elevate themselves as artists, because Gate is the hype man, but you also have Els as the producer, and then he's sticking around. And then what's the actor that plays his manager? Andrew
Santino, or the character's name Mike, but the actor, the comedian, is Andrew Santino.
Yeah, so I think the finale, in my opinion, does a good job of exemplifying why he deserves a chance, at least in the conversation of, either the rap game or just creating in general, because he's not taking advantage of people. He's simply doing what many other artists do, having friends back him up in terms of chasing their dreams. So all that said for that point,
I think like years ago he talked about how he wanted to be a comedian and just in general, just an artist, and so he used comedy as an avenue, or he used rap as an avenue for comedy at first, and that's when he kind of realized he has some legitimate talent. And so I think that's where a lot of the criticism first came, is that people were like, oh, you're just using rap, as a way to just achieve some of the things that you want to do in terms of people call him a culture vulture. But I mean, I think he definitely just showed that he's a very talented artist in general, not just rapping, but very creative, and he obviously has a good creative team around him in terms of in general, wanting to create a show it's super ambitious, and when you want to do that, you have to have good people around you, surround yourself with talented people, talented writers, talented producers. And he clearly did that. I mean, he we mentioned before, he got Kevin Hart on this project, and I think that was huge, to have that name behind him, to have that sort of like, say what you will about Kevin Hart, like, in terms of, like, people think that he's, like, a very basic comedian or whatever, but he's very talented, he's very successful, and he knows how to, like, he's a very successful comedian and actor, and just, like, he's very successful in the entertainment, sector, and he clearly knows how to navigate things, and so I think having Kevin Hart basically sign off to say, like, yeah, man, I'd love to be a part of the show, I think is a testament to the show itself, that he believes in that project.
Yeah, 100%.
So I can't wait to see what else, where else they go with the show, because I do think that the show ended in a good place, but there are a lot of places to go, and then in general, like, it's not like the show ended where you look at Lil Dicky like, oh, you definitely have everything figured out. Like, he made some, like, the right decisions by the end of the show, but he still, like, you still could tell that it's not like that he didn't make those decisions, and it's like moving forward he's gonna do everything right from here on out. Like, you could still tell that, like, he's like he's egomaniac in the show. Like, he's growing as a person. He's an egomaniac who's going to want to, like, artist in terms of wanting to do whatever he wants to do and not really considering, like, his friends or whatever all the time. But I'm interested to see where they go from here. And especially with how strong this first season was.
If you had to pick your favorite episode out of this season, which one would it be?
I'm split between episode 9, like the wedding one, and Hype Man.
Yeah.
I really thought Hype Man was, like, one of their, like, strongest episodes. I'd probably go with Hype Man. Hype Man was really great. Like, when I first started watching the show, I didn't expect, like, Dave to really hit you in the feels, and that episode was, like, the first one to do it. Like, episode 9 definitely does it, like, episode 10 does it, but, like, episode 5, like, for sure, like, like, that one was, like, super emotional, and I think had a great message, and it was a real, like, story, like, that. The guy who plays Gata, like, that's really that guy, and he really is bipolar. He really is, like, dealing with those things. And so I thought that was, like, really, I mean, to dedicate an episode about, like, his hype man who's bipolar and who's struggling with those things, and I thought that was, like, a really great episode, and just in general, like, the storytelling was great. And it gives you so much more, like just context as to who that character is, and, like, backstory that I didn't expect. Like, when you first meet the character Gata in episode 1, I really liked the character. I thought he was super entertaining. I thought he was really funny. He just came off as so genuine, so I didn't really look into who he was. And then by episode 5, I was like, wow, that was amazing. And then I think, like, I remember I went to Dave's Twitter after the episode, and I think he retweeted something by the guy who actually, by Gata, like, his actual account. And so I went to the thing, and I found out that it was, like, that's really him. Like, that's, like, it's not like it was just, like, some actor who came in to play Gata, like, this written character. And so I thought that was amazing, that, like, oh, like, this really is that guy, and, like, that episode just gives you so much backstory about who he is. He's not just some, like, he's not the token, like, black guy in Dave's friend group. Like, he's not just some random hype man. He's not just some goofy dude. Like, that episode had a lot of heart, and I would say that's why I would say episode 5, Hype Man, was my favorite one.
Yeah, I mean, you make probably the best case, like the strongest case for it, because I completely agree with you. I think it has a knack for being self-reflective, not only of the character / person of Gata, but just the show overall. Because, as to start out, you can't just jump in full dive into side characters' story plots, but they probably did it as soon as they could. Like, it's not like they waited until season 2 to actually give backstory. Like, they started from the season.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and it had an adult conversation about struggles of every day for a lot of people. And I do want to shout out episode 3, which is Hypospadias, which is, you know, the whole conversation over why Dave calls himself Lil Dicky. And it goes, you know, it's humorous in a lot of points, but it does get kind of dark and melancholic, if that's a word, and very kind of serious to a point of, hey, you know, this is a struggle for this person's life. And it's that type of thing just isn't talked about a lot, especially within television series. So it was cool to see, you know, just kind of a very specific human, I guess, fault, according to, you know, Dave, but, you know, something that he's lived with his whole life. I don't know. It was very real and raw, and I give him props for actually having the guts to make a whole episode about it. So.
Although I will say, watching that episode without headphones is not recommended.
No. I remember I was watching this show. But...
I was watching that episode specifically while I was doing some cleaning in my room, and so I just had it connected to a Bluetooth speaker. And so I was watching it and also listening to it in the background while I was like cleaning random stuff. And I was like, I'm just gonna put this on pause and come back to it later.
Yo, chill.
Because that episode specifically is very raunchy. But yeah, I mean, I think what I like about it is that whether you were a fan of Lil Dicky before, or if you're a fan of him or not, I think it's just a solid show in general. Like,
oh yeah,
obviously you have to have some interest in like a story about an up and coming rapper. Like, if you could care less about it, then I don't think that I think you would still enjoy the show, but not as much as you would if you found that sort of story entertaining. But I don't think you need to be like, I know for a fact you don't need to be a Lil Dicky fan to enjoy the show. No. Like, I think that the show has enough. You don't need to know that much about his music. You don't need to have heard any of his music before to really enjoy it. Being a fan of him definitely helps. Like, you definitely like, you understand a lot of the references that he does in the show. Like, you like when certain things happen in the show and you're like, hey, I like, whoa, that was from this song, or like, oh, that's like a reference to this. Or I remember when he was like doing this, like when he was doing YouTube videos, and just like, oh yeah, it was like, it's cool to like see those sort of things like portrayed in the show. But you definitely don't need to be like, if you're the kind of person who hears about the show Dave and you're like, yeah, but I'm not a Lil Dicky fan, and like you're hesitant, like I would say give it a chance, because it's a solid show. Yeah.
I really couldn't say it any better than that. So we'll end it on check out the show, see if it's for you, and if it is, let us know in the comments what episodes or episode in general you found entertaining or just plain good. So
just plain good.
We've been talking about music in that general zone with Dave, so I thought we could talk about kind of the music we've been listening to, because your boy himself has recently tried to find a bit more music that I hadn't considered before, and wouldn't you know it, I'm kind of digging old country music.
Country road,
take me home. More specifically, like the Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, just the Highwaymen in general. Willie Nelson, and then there's a lot of kind of other 60s or 60s, 70s. Everyone else kind of sprinkled in some Bob Dylan.
Old country is definitely the country that I will tolerate the most. I don't really like a lot of country music, but I actually do really enjoy old country music. Johnny Cash and Hank Williams. Hank Williams Jr.
Hank Williams Jr.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with you. I like old country. Old country's good.
Yeah, I hadn't really checked it out before because it was kind of an ongoing thing within at least my household growing up because we lived in a small town and we didn't listen to country because everyone listened to country there, and it was always the modern twang, like kind of the unlikable. And I just hadn't really heard more of the classic stuff. And my roommate, his girlfriend, and I were watching. It's one of my favorite movies. It's Hell or High Water.
Nice, great movie.
Yeah, we were watching it, and I was like, you know what? I've never actually checked out the soundtrack to this. And so I checked it out, and then I found Waylon Jennings specifically. I've been listening to a lot, and then he's just good. It's a good time. I'm walking through the hot California desert air, and I'm just like, yeah, this is the old country. Here we are, like, ma'am. I feel real cowboy. Feel real cowboy when listening to it. How about you, pal? Have you been listening to any good music recently?
I mean, I've kind of been all over the place with my music.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Chicano Batman, which if you don't know who that is, that's the band that made the song like Black Lipstick.
The lipstick's black.
Yeah.
They just released like an album in the start of May. It's pretty good. It's
that's
alternative music. I've been listening to a little bit of Travis Scott here and there, and then his recent song that he did with Kid Cudi, where they call themselves the Scots. That's a pretty good song. Jeremiah, you know Jeremiah? Jeremiah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been listening to his 2015 album, Late Nights. I was texting Mariana about this like almost like a month ago, a couple weeks ago, where I was like, I knew the song "We," like the French way to pronounce it, "We." I knew that song by him, but I never really gave that album that it was on. Like, I never really gave it a listen. And I'm a huge R&B fan. Like, I love R&B. So I recently like gave it a listen, and I was like, "Damn, I've been sleeping on this album. This is a great album."
Yeah.
And then
this kind of slaps.
It was actually perfect timing because the last song on that album, Paradise, is actually in the movie Big Time Adolescence.
Right.
Yeah, like where they go to that art museum. Mm-hmm. Like and so I freaked out when I heard it. I'm like, oh shit, like this is perfect. Like I've just been listening to Jeremiah, and like next thing you know, like this song pops up in Big Time Adolescence, and I was like, dude, great song.
Yeah,
it's such
Can we talk about that movie?
Sure. But I thought it was just so cool. I'm like, that's, just so like random that like this album from 2015 that I decided to listen to. And obviously it was a big album. Like it's not like no one's ever heard of this guy. Like he's a very popular artist, but I'm just saying like
pretty unknown. He's pretty underground.
How wacky that like this song that I just decided to listen to on this album all of a sudden makes it in a movie that like came out in 2020.
I'm telling you, man, the Google algorithm, it's out to get you.
Yeah. But, yeah, we could talk about Big Time Adolescence though. That was If you're not aware, Pete Davidson recently released a movie on Hulu called Big Time Adolescence.
He didn't direct it, did he?
No, but it was. Okay. I remember like this movie, and then he's got like another one coming out. But like since he's like basically done with SNL. I know that he was like he did this interview with like Charlemagne the God, and like where he just kind of talked about how he just doesn't feel like SNL doesn't feel the same anymore, and he just kind of feels like everyone there looks at him as like just this fuck up, and like he's just like, I'm kind of done with it, and so I'm pretty sure this is gonna be his last season, but he talked about how he's doing a lot more like movies now where like as lead roles, like not just like because he's been in movies obviously, but like as like a random side character. So this is this was Pete Davidson's first movie as like a lead role, and it's just about him and this young like high schooler who he kind of like hangs out with, like takes under his wing because he was dating the kid's like older sister when they were younger, and just like in general the kid looked up to him, and now like years later kid's in high school and he's like an adult, and just kind of like it's a movie about growing up, like not just as a young teenager but as like a young adult, like learning to grow up and learning about like how to navigate like friendships and relationships, and like how it's just like you talked about it earlier, so like you can talk about it more, but like navigating and identifying a toxic relationship and how those things can look. So you can like talk about that a little bit more.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, Carlos had watched it first, and then he's like, "You should check it out." And I'm just like, I feel like I've seen clips of Pete Davidson acting, and I feel like he just plays himself. So, but I was like, like anything Carlos recommends, I'll check out. So I put it on, and it was just me in the apartment last night, and I'm watching. I'm just like, okay, I'm getting hooked. I'm interested. I like a good coming of age story, and just as the story goes on, it does a great job of showing the dynamic within like friendships of different ages and kind of the motivations as to why someone would hang out with someone younger and vice versa. Because the kid, thinks Pete Davidson's character is like the coolest guy ever, and Pete Davidson kind of relies on the kid to, boost him up, at least, ego wise.
Yeah.
And it does similar plot points as to a lot of other coming of age stories, as in, all right, so it builds to the climax, standard story structure and everything. But, mild spoiler alert in terms of character arcs and everything. Pete Davidson's character is not made out as 100% the villain. It kind of seems like that's the route that the movie is going with. But it actually does a good job of being like, you know what, this guy, like, he fucks up a lot and he can be a better person, but sometimes he just chooses not to. And it's more of a tragedy. Obviously there's comedic bits throughout, but it really, it just does a good job of kind of showing that dynamic between those two types of characters.
Yeah, I mean, I like, and you touched on how he's not necessarily like made out to be the villain, because he really does care about this kid. Like, it's not like this sort of thing where he's like manipulating constantly, just like has this kid around only to feel cool. Like, he does care about him. He does view him as a friend. He does, like, he looks out for him like a big brother does. Like, it's a big brother and his little brother. And I'm sure that there's, in a lot of ways, like, if you're a big brother and you have a little brother, like, or you're a little brother and you have a big brother, like, you look up to that older sibling, and that older sibling looks out for you, and they keep you around. And I'm sure in some ways that your older sibling would feel that sort of like, I like having this, like, my younger brother around because he does make me feel cool in a way. Like, he looks up to me and I feel cooler than maybe like you might feel when that person's not around. And, like, sometimes you look up to your older sibling, like people older than you, and like, oh, that's so cool. Like, the most mundane thing they could be doing could look so cool to you, and it could sort of blind you to some other things about that person. But but I do enjoy that it wasn't this sort of story about like, oh yeah, Pete Davidson's just this asshole who's manipulating like a teenager. Like, he does care about him, and he does genuinely look at him as a friend. Because I mean, it's not like Pete Davidson's character in the movie doesn't necessarily have like a lot of friends. He has his sort of friend group, and so you could tell that like he like in part he likes having this kid around because like it does boost his confidence and makes him feel a lot cooler, but at the same time, like, he is looking out for this kid and wants to help him navigate, high school or just growing up in the ways that he thinks is best. Like, he's giving him advice on girls and relationships and like
it worked for
high
him,
school,
but it wasn't the best way.
Right. And so like as a viewer, you're seeing it and you're like that's not great advice, or like, no, don't do that. But like you could tell that he's not doing it from a place of like, oh, I just want to fuck with this kid. Like, let me give him this advice so he like screws up and it'll be funny. Like he's doing it from a place of like, I really think that like, oh, like if you do this, like you'll be cool just like me. And I thought it was a great story, just about, you know, growing up, because there's not a lot of stories about, you know, young adults growing up, like people like Pete Davidson, like growing up, like,
oh yeah,
you know, like becoming mature. And it's not like he ends the like movie like being like this complete turnaround, but like it is a story not just about the kid growing up, but like Pete Davidson's got to realize that like he's no longer like a teenager, like he's an adult, and he's got to grow up, and he's got to like be responsible, and like he can't just be this like fuck up all his life. Like he's got to move forward, and if he doesn't, like the world's gonna move on from him. Like if and so I think like it had a great message of like if you don't grow up, and if you keep holding on to the past, like you're gonna get left behind. And so I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was funny at times. Like it wasn't like this like ball busting laughter. Like I'm not watching it like this is the greatest comedy ever, but this
is the best.
Has good comedy here and there, and it's at times a tragic story, and also like it's so yeah. If you haven't heard of it, or look up the trailer, check it out on Hulu.
Yeah, in all honesty,
you don't have to like be a huge fan of Pete Davidson's comedy, like stand-up comedy, to watch it. It's not necessarily like about like Pete Davidson's stand-up career. It's
no,
you know.
I would say after watching it and kind of reflecting upon it, if you have the time, I would recommend a double feature of this movie, Big Time Adolescence, but also the documentary Minding the Gap, because I feel both kind of touch on both tones of like departing friendships, or at least analyzing friendships that have their faults, and kind of questioning, is this good for me as a person? Is this good for them as a person?
Dude,
so I feel like those could kind of complement each other pretty well.
I need to watch Minding the Gap with Mariana, because I watched it I actually watched it on a plane ride, and I really enjoyed it, but Mariana was like sleeping, so she didn't watch it with me.
Dang.
But I told her about it, and she was like, "Oh, that sounds really good," and then we just never got around to showing it to her. That is a very good documentary. And then if you have time for a triple feature, watch that, Minding the Gap, and then Mid-90s by Jonah Hill.
Oh my god.
Because that also deals with those sort of like, you know, I mean, it has a lot of those similar themes about growing up and being in this friend group, and kind of analyzing who's in the friend group for what reasons, like who's like who keeps who around, you know, for themselves, or is it, you know, it's definitely has a lot of similarities in that way.
Yeah. I really liked the movie. I will say though, someone that I was like, what the hell? Why are you here? Was when Machine Gun Kelly just like was walking around as a friend group. Yeah. And I'm just like, fucking Machine Gun Kelly's here? I forgot that you act. Okay.
Listen, I don't like Machine Gun Kelly as like a rapper or rock star or whatever. Like I don't really care for his music, but I have liked his acting and like his just like any movies he's like been in. I have enjoyed like his sort of like the characters he's played. Whenever I've seen him in movies or TV shows, I'm like, hey, that's Colson Baker. Yeah, it's not Machine Gun Kelly.
Also, in terms of side characters, it was it had been a while since I had seen John Cryer, aka what's his name from Two and a Half Men. And he's like bald and bearded in this, and I'm just like, this is weirding me out. I know he's just like a normal human being.
It's
and,
weird.
You know, wants to do other projects, but I'm like, what the heck?
It's weird seeing John Cryer or whatever like in that sort of role, and not like the role he was as Alan in Two and a Half Men, where he's just this super dependent, like just really leechy, vulture-y like person.
Mm.
Like here in this movie, he's like the responsible dad looking out for his kid and like just very well put together. And you're like, oh God, that's not Alan from 2.5 Men. And you're like, oh, that's right, because that's not him as a person. That's a character he played in his show.
Yeah. Well, guys, on that note, thank you for joining us today. I've been Andy.
You have been Andy.
And
I've been Carlos.
And he's been Carlos. If you want to check out our past episodes, we have a fun little playlist down there in the description or wherever available for you.
Wow.
Check out our channel. Yeah, wow, it was big time.
Check out the Andy Phillips channel. Good content.
Thank you.
Subscribe to his YouTube. Check out his Patreon. Donate to his Patreon.
Thank you.
I'm plugging it because you won't.
Well, yeah, I gotta be a humble king. That's part of my brand. All that said, guys, thank you very much for watching, and thanks, Tom Hanks. See, we did it this week.
Thanks, Tom Hanks. We did it together at the same time.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, thanks. All right, bye, guys.